Namaskar. Thank you all for joining us on this very special Saturday. Before we begin our Defence Summit, I want to briefly talk about why we are hosting it now. India is reshaping its defence story. It has now emerged as a global player in defence, in the defence sector, and turbocharging this transformation from an importer to a defence manufacturer is our Make in India initiative, a campaign championed by none other than Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Today, Firstpost has brought together geopolitical strategists from across the world in this one-of-a-kind summit to help us chart and understand the roadmap for the future. We'll discuss common challenges, Atmanirbhar Bharat's defense journey, and the elephant in the room, or shall I say war room, artificial intelligence. What are the implications of militarizing AI? And will it be a Faustian bargain? We'll delve into these exigent issues with our eminent panelists. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy what promises to be a cracker of a summit. If you're in charge of the defense of 1.4 billion Indians and surrounded by strategic challenges, yet Shri Rajnath Singh has made it work. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the keynote speaker and chief guest for our inaugural Defence Summit, India's Defence Minister, Shri Rajnath Singh.
Shri Rahul Joshi, Managing Director and Group Editor-in-Chief, Network 18. Shri Santosh Menon, Chief Content Officer, Network 18. Susri Palki Sharma, Managing Editor, Firstpost. सबसे पहले मैं तो आभार व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं कि इस नेटवर्क 18 और फर्स्टपोस्ट से जुड़े हुए इस कार्यक्रम में आप सब लोगों ने मुझे आमंत्रित किया है। हम सब जानते हैं कि यूरोप एक डेवलप्ड कॉन्टिनेंट है, वहां अधिकांश देश काफी डेवलप्ड हैं, लेकिन उन डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज की इकोनॉमी का अध्ययन जब आप करेंगे तो एक बहुत ही बारीक चीज पर आपका ध्यान स्वाभाविक रूप से जाएगा। उन डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज में खासकर फ्रांस, इटली और यूके जैसे जो रिच कंट्रीज मानी जाती हैं, वहां भी पिछले कुछ समय में प्रोडक्टिविटी ग्रोथ काफी स्टंटेड रही है। चीफ ऑफ डिफेंस स्टाफ यानी सीडीएस के पद का सृजन किया तो कई लोगों के द्वारा यह कहा गया कि सीडीएस की स्थापना से कुछ समय तक सेनाओं में उथल पुथल रहेगी, कोऑर्डिनेशन उस तरह से शायद न बन पाए जिस तरह की अपेक्षा रखकर इस पद को क्रिएट किया गया। लेकिन हम जानते थे कि इस पद से लॉन्ग टर्म में भारत की तीनों सेनाओं और सरकार के मध्य जो कोऑर्डिनेशन है वो और स्मूथली संभव हो पाएगा, ऐसा हम लोगों का विश्वास था। हमारी गवर्नमेंट का यह मानना है कि कोई भी सेना सिर्फ दूसरे देशों के रिसोर्सेज पर अपने राष्ट्र की सुरक्षा पूरी तरह से नहीं कर सकती है। इसलिए हमने आत्मनिर्भरता के विभिन्न कार्यक्रमों के माध्यम से यह इंश्योर करने का प्रयास किया है कि हमारे सैनिकों के लिए रक्षा संबंधित साजो सामान का उत्पादन भारत में ही हो। और मुझे बताते हुए बेहद खुशी हो रही है कि हमारे यह प्रयास अब रंग ला रहे हैं। आज भारत का डोमेस्टिक डिफेंस प्रोडक्शन 1 लाख करोड़ सालाना के आंकड़े को पार कर चुका है। हम एक समय दुनिया में हथियारों के सबसे बड़े आर्म्स इंपोर्टर थे, लेकिन आज हम टॉप 25 आर्म्स एक्सपोर्टर्स की लिस्ट में आकर खड़े हो गए। टेक्नोलॉजी हर मामले में एक बड़ा वॉरियर बनकर उभरी है, टेक्नोलॉजी एक बड़ी योद्धा बनकर उभरी है। आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, क्वांटम कंप्यूटिंग, स्मार्ट वेपन्स, साइबर वारफेयर, स्पेस वारफेयर जैसी भविष्य की चीजों में वही देश आगे बढ़ सकते हैं जो अपने यहां टेक्नोलॉजी में मैक्सिमम इन्वेस्ट करेंगे। सरकार के पास अब ना तो पैसे की कमी है, अब केवल पैसे से काम नहीं चलता, नीयत चाहिए, इंटेंशन चाहिए, करने का जज्बा चाहिए। तो न तो भारत के पास पैसे की कमी है और न तो भारत के पास नीयत की कमी है और न तो भारत के पास जज्बे की कमी है, न तो भारत के पास जोखिम उठाने के साहस की कमी है। जब नारी शक्ति बंधन अधिनियम के तहत, जिसमें कि महिलाओं को पार्लियामेंट और असेंबली में रिजर्वेशन दिया गया है, हमने महिलाओं को वर्षों से लंबित उनका एक पॉलिटिकल राइट, एक राजनीतिक अधिकार जो मिल जाना चाहिए था, उसे हम लोगों ने प्रदान किया है। साथियों, यह प्रधानमंत्री जी का ही लॉन्ग टर्म विजन है, यह उनका पॉलिटिकल करेज है। यह सब करने के लिए पॉलिटिकल करेज चाहिए कि उन्होंने पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी के कंस्ट्रेंट्स को ट्रांसेंड करते हुए एक ऐसी अर्थव्यवस्था निर्मित की है जो उनके तीसरे कार्यकाल में दुनिया की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बनकर उभरेगी। और मैं समझता हूं चौथे कार्यकाल के बारे में भी किसी को संदेह नहीं होगा।
Amidst the ongoing geopolitical flux in the world order, the character of war continues to change. Disruptive technologies are blunting conventional combat force ratios. Multi-domain operations, to include cyber, space, electromagnetic spectrum, and information, are today inescapable realities. Conventional instruments of war have also undergone notable technological progression. Non-state actors are increasingly gaining access to modern technologies of military use and employing it for an asymmetric leverage in conflict. Cumulatively, we have seen that the battle space has become more complex, contested, and lethal. We had initiated the process of transformation some time back, and it entailed essentially 5 distinct pillars, namely force structure and force structuring and optimization, modernization and technology infusion, refining our systems, processes, and functions. Fourth was human resource management, and last was improving jointness and integration. I must say we have made good and considerable progress spanning all these disciplines.
Would you call 2024 the year of self-reliance?
I think for those of you who have been following what we have been doing, we've already declared 2024 as the year of technology absorption. And I think it has lots to do with becoming self-reliant, because to be able to absorb the technology and in fact to be able to have critical technologies which we require for our war-fighting systems, I believe within the country we have the requisite knowledge, the requisite capacities.
There is now talk of AI in warfare, and there's also talk of AI sovereignty, how you need to develop your own systems to be. So what sort of self-reliance are we looking in that space, in the technology space, and how is the Indian security apparatus geared to deal with that disruption?
First is for us to accept, identify, recognize the potential of niche or disruptive technologies, exactly the way you mentioned. Because I believe these days the conventional combat ratios which we used to talk of earlier have become less relevant. We've set up our AI and 5G and quantum computing labs which are doing well. We've made a 5G and a AI roadmap as to how you integrate 5G with military Internet of Things. These are some of the steps which were taken.
How do you plan to sort of complement this push for jointness among the three forces?
So I think there's no debate in terms of why we need to become more joint, why we need to become more integrated. Essentially to leverage better our capabilities, our potential, and aggregate the capabilities of the three services. We have identified different areas where work is already happening. More needs to be done, which we are currently working on. Now, how will it help indigenization is the question. A, in terms of quantities, because we have common platforms, some of them between the three services. If you have standardization, if you have common performance parameters, qualitative requirements, it will be that much easier for the industry to address or meet these requirements, to undertake any upgradations that may be required. The aspirations of the rising India, we have to make sure that our security is in no manner impacted. so that the progress, the path of progress that we are on is in no way impacted. So that I wish to reassure and convey this confidence that we will be able to do this successfully in the future.
I think I can confidently and safely say it on behalf of everyone that we are all proud of what the Army does, and we have full confidence. Thank you very much, General Pandey, for making time and for sharing your thoughts with us.
Look at the Make in India and its success story. I think there was a time when almost everything was doom and gloom when it came to Indian defense industry. Suddenly, in a few years' time, we have seen a very transformative moment. You know, the numbers itself, they are very inspiring. So what makes this moment so interesting, and what makes this moment full of potential for Indian defense industry?
We have been talking about self-reliance for a long time, but there was no determination on the part of the government to enforce it. I think once the present government has come in power, they have really made a strong push to enforce Atmanirbharta.
Today we supply to the Indian Army. Even though we were a small company, the Army has trusted us time and again with orders for unmanned systems, and there have been other similar startups who I personally know of who've also benefited from the government's intent. Because the government introduced a new category, IDDM, which is Indigenous Design, Develop and Manufacture, which gives further incentives to companies to actually design and manufacture in India, and the government would only procure such systems from Indian designs.
I mean, this is very, very inspiring what you are doing, and I think this all-woman unit that assembles and manufactures all the lethal and non-lethal weapons that you have encouraged and that you have nurtured, I think that deserves to be told to this audience. So I would really like you to first tell that side of the story, and then I think take on the conversation from what Neil was suggesting.
We want to be part of the defense manufacturing story of the country. Yes, when Honorable Prime Minister made this Make in India call, it was a call to action for us. It was not just an intention, it was a call to action, and today it is a reality for us. And increasingly, we live in a world which is borderless in terms of technology, innovation, education, and it is imperative that we have to work harder to ensure freedom and security of every citizen. So Atmanirbharta is a necessity, and it's just not a word.
The way you perceive India's defense sector, what are some of the trends that you are witnessing looking at it from outside?
Well, in Southeast Asia, we often say that in order to succeed, you would need to have a good combination of three things. The first one is the right capability. Second is the right market demand. And the third is the right moment. So India actually sits beside one of the largest, biggest arms importer of the world. 6 out of 30 largest arms importers are from Southeast Asia. And as we already know, recently there have been a lot of deals between Indian companies and the Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam, and even Thailand, maybe in the future. I think it's the right moment for India to push for the initiative to be more present in Southeast Asia in terms of providing arms and maintenance for countries in the region. Not only because that India can become an alternative provider of arms to Russia, but also India can play a much more secure, much more peaceful role in order to guarantee the peaceful environment in the region.
And we know that technologies it's changing very, very rapidly. So where does India fit in, and how do we create that R&D ecosystem that would allow us to tap into that potential?
Very good question. So the first thing that we have to do is to build the R&D ecosystem in the country. For far too long, the R&D was only focused in DRDO, but the government has now taken steps to ensure that the R&D ecosystem includes the startups, the MSMEs, as well as the academia. This will help us in bringing innovation much quicker to the market.
The purpose of defense diplomacy is really not to enter into wars, but to end wars. While defense is a subject which people think deals with all the defense equipments, war handling machines and men, but you will find a soldier seeking peace and having military for the peaceful purposes. Humanitarian aid and disaster resilience is one of our strands on which our military diplomacy stands. The job of diplomacy is twofold. One is securing our own nation in terms of territorial integrity. Two, to provide economic stability and prosperity to all the inmates of a country. Three, to build cooperation amongst nations which seek friendship. Four, to deal with the ones who are difficult, and that also is essential, but deal with them in a dignified way.
Now, what happened, Navy also took a lead in having a submarine arm, but in the beginning, we were not ready, or we did not have the industrial base to make submarines in India. In the 80s, in 90s, government sanctioned that let us make submarines in India, and that was done in collaboration with Germany. It was quite, a good program, but for various controversies, it could not be carried forward. So there was lull actually thereafter, and gap of almost, I would say, the last submarine HDW was commissioned in 1994. Okay, I think if I remember correctly, and we signed thereafter contract for the Scorpius submarines in 2005 December. So you see, there was a gap of almost 20 years when nothing happened. Okay, and therefore, when we lost all these skills, etc., for 20 years, it was a sad story. But anyway, so we again started the program, and government sanctioned this thing. 6 to be built under that program. Now, there are two uniqueness of that program, which you will be happy to know. It has not happened anywhere in the world when you are making, in collaboration, certain platforms, that the first one is built in the recipient country. But in this program, we were very ambitious, and France supported our ambition to say the first one itself will be built in India only. Okay. So that's how this thing, though it took time, because we lost, but finally we made. We have now made 5 submarines, and the help of France in the TOT in making this platform was only for the first 2 submarines. After, Frenchies are not helping in TOT or for construction of the submarine. It is entirely now, Mazagon Dock is self-reliant to build submarines on their own.
How do you rate the export potential of some of these capabilities that we are developing at home?
Yeah. When I was MD, sometimes my boss will tell me, why don't you go and meet somewhere, export some ship submarines? It's not possible. Like, because we are recipient of foreign. We know who sells a submarine, who sells. It's the government sells. So it is the government which has to be at the forefront. And I'm happy to see, because this was, when Dr. Kamal said today, it is driven from the top. It is happening today because it is driven from the top. So it is happening. The 3 important stakeholders in this, the Foreign Ministry, number 1, I think our Meenakshi Lekhi was here, MOD is second, and third is industry. These 3 segments are to work in conjunction in New Zealand. Then only our export will take place. Okay, this is, I think, second, which was not happening earlier, but today it is happening. I think that's how the results are coming.
I think what we're seeing off the coast of Yemen is that we have a quickly evolving low-end threat with very inexpensive, in military terms, platforms able to cause meaningful damage against commercial shipping. Right now in Yemen, the U.S. is able to do some damage limitation strikes because we have air superiority. We can blow up targets that are still on the ground. When one is dealing with China, that's going to be a much more difficult problem set. And for some countries, India vis-a-vis China in a naval scenario, there's basically no ability probably to hold Chinese air-launched anti-ship ballistic missiles at risk, or ground-launched anti-ship ballistic missiles at risk. But the threat that India is likely to face in the lifetime of the vessels that are being produced right now, that's going to be evolving very quickly, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on everybody in this room.
How does one think of strategies of international cooperation to address China's maritime expansion?
The South China Sea has always been a sea common to all. Never in the history of the South China Sea has China been able to control it. So again, this is a point that we like to raise. So in the light of what we call Chinese maritime expansion, first, of course, we relied on international law, the importance of international law, filing of the claim against China in January 2016. And of course, the ruling came out in 2016. Of course, China ignored the ruling, but of course, it served a very important purpose. It deprived China of any sense of legitimacy in its 9-line claim. China, the plan has now the largest number of ships. So this is a reality we face. You can talk about peace, but I would refer back to the old Roman dictum. If you want peace, you have to prepare for war.
Small country like ours, we have to make sure that we have friendships, we have partners, we have allies who would help us if something like that happens. And India has been our traditional first responder. As partners, not only as security partners, as friends, we have always helped each other. And I think we should remain this way. What is worrying is to see Chinese research ships and all being there in the Maldives, which what we don't want to see is a huge geopolitical competition which may lead to wars, things like this. So instead of us preparing for a war, it is more important for us to avoid war, to maintain peace and stability in the region so that there is no reason why we should have a full-fledged war in the small or even in the territory of our country and beyond in the Indian Ocean.